Hello and welcome back. I'm so excited to have with me Sanaa Walker, who is joining us as another just exceptional expert, and I will say another influencer out on LinkedIn and has a tremendous amount of experience. Sanaa, thank you so much for joining with me today.
Oh, absolutely, Ryan. I appreciate the request. I mean, this is awesome. I want to talk more about work.
I'm going to come in and I'm going to ask you about your experience, your background
hmm
in the organization and program that you run. But before I do that, I want to talk about something that's really critical that's hitting a lot of HR practitioners right now, which is boundary setting, which is understanding like, how do I get my leadership to respect my time, my space, and my tasks? What say you? How do we do that?
It starts before you say yes to the job. What I find is nobody asks the right questions in an interview, the interviewer or the interviewee. In HR, we tend to be the worst job candidates. Unfortunately, maybe we're too close to it, but everyone has their non-negotiables. And if you inquire in the most professional way possible about your non-negotiables, start having dialogue in your interview, giving data about who you are, and not afraid that who you are is going to scare them off. But at the more you teach people how to treat you, the better the relationships, because even if they don't like you, they'll respect you. But if you're already on the job and perhaps you didn't set the tone, you have to reset. And a
Yeah.
part of reset requires communication. People assume that because you're a C-suite leader, you should know better. Now, what know better means is subjective, but never take for granted that someone's position puts them in a position to know what you're thinking, what you need. It's not possible. And that's a little bit of what I would do if I were already on the job.
I love it. Well, I think having hard conversations is a hard thing to do. And the natural instinct is to kind of avoid conflict, avoid
hmm
confrontation, and maybe not hit that hard moment. But if we're feeling overwhelmed and our boundaries are being crept through, it may require a hard thing, which is a hard conversation. So I
Absolutely.
really appreciate that insight. So now tell me a little bit about your experience. I mean, I want to hear, explain for us that maybe those that don't know anything about HR Girlfriends, kind of what that is and how it came to be.
Absolutely. So I am originally from New York and I have lived in a couple of places along my journey, but I spent almost 20 years in the Washington, DC area. And there is where I came across HR Girlfriends. I happened to be at a Sherm Happy Hour, local DC chapter. I met a job seeker. She and I hit it off, and she says, "Have you ever heard of HR Girlfriends?" I was like, no. But my brain kept saying, I just recovered from the flu. I'm 2 months in a new job. I don't want anything new. And
Yeah.
so we hit it off. She reached back out in about a week or two and asked again, did you check out HR Girlfriends? I'm a believer in numbers and signs, right? Like if something is happening in some repetition, maybe there's a there there. I hop online. I realize it's a meetup.com group. Instantly, I get excited. I can't tell you why. Maybe it was because it looked like an opportunity to connect with my peers. I
Mm-hmm.
reached out to the organizer. He responded promptly and said, "You can have it if you want it. I live too far now." And so I took this very ad hoc meetup.com group back in 2013, March of that year, and turned it into what it is today. We have thousands of members across the country. We even support some internationally. And our goal is to do two things. It is to provide personal and professional development. I think people ignore themselves off the clock, and who you are off the clock matters just as much as who you are on the clock.
Yeah,
So our
absolutely.
programming hits both of those particular areas, and we're going strong. From that, we also run a really amazing consultancy for HR clients, nonprofits primarily. And so we stay busy at HR Girlfriends, but
Yeah.
we just love the work and the women we're serving.
We all seek a community or our own tribe that we can align
hmm
with and be able to let our hair down, so to speak, and just kind of be able to vent, but get feedback and motivation, kind of intangible things that you don't really get in the workplace. And I'd imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lot of like HR departments of one or smaller HR departments that kind of tend to connect with you. Does that sound like a fair statement?
That is fair. My members, on average, are in mid-career to as they start coming up on that 10th to 12th year in
Okay.
that range. And a lot of them are HR departments of one. Look, we know that small business is what America is made of. And so those very small businesses that are the heartbeat of America eventually grow and need HR.
Yeah.
And because of the fact that HR is not a profit center, it is one of the most ignored and leanest departments typically in those environments. And so those individuals need a heightened level of support. There is no peer sitting next to them to bounce ideas off of. They are battling what they can afford, right, in terms of technology, resources, even something as simple as compliance and keeping up with laws. Everything has a price tag. And so where do you decide where to spend the money, right? On top of paying a human being to
Sure.
lead the function. So what we offer in our membership is a full compliance suite, multi-state. As long as you're a member, you have full access, no questions asked. And that is one of our most coveted benefits because of that. I'd like to tell people, because everyone knows SHRM's Knowledge Center, I say it's like SHRM's Knowledge Center on steroids.
Hmm.
We really show up on a consistent basis to support them because they need it the most.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd imagine you get to hear a lot of the wins, but a lot of the struggles that are happening inside that. We're kind of entering this weird new chapter of HR, right? You've got
Mm-hmm.
the Bambis out there trying to say, we'll be your HR department for $39 a month. No contract, unlimited HR services. And so it paints this poison in the CEO's mind that HR is cheap and it's quick and I can turn it on and off. But it's also, you got AI into it. You got this whole generation of like, oh, I could run an HR department just through ChatGPT prompts. There's this next like iteration, next chapter of like what HR is and what it isn't. What are some of the things you're seeing that they're facing that kind of redefine the next version of HR 2.0?
HR doesn't have to be convinced that we are vital. It's leaders, it is
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, it is business individuals. I find that when you go to open a business, you'll call your lawyer, you'll call your accountant, you'll call, whoever that is, except an HR consultant. And I always tell people, reaching out to HR before you start bringing your dreams to life helps you decide when to bring HR on, how to create a bridge until you can afford it, but not
Mm-hmm.
enough forethought goes into HR. Most owners do it out of necessity. And so as we look at what 2.0 looks like, a lot of that is going to be predicated on the continued value, or at least value judgment, that leaders put on us. I do love the growth and strength of our industry. With over 20 years ago, we came from personnel department to human resources department, human capital, people ops, right? So, and our salaries are matching, right? The
Mm-hmm.
expectation and the amount of work we put in to making our roles efficient and worthy. But I think that any HR professional or any leader who isn't leaning into technology is going to miss out. And one of the other things is, as AI takes over, there is that misconception that AI can replace people, can replace portions of people, right? Or things. And while they can make your role more efficient in HR, I use it all the time. You still need a human being to decipher. Compliance is real, and every state has their own laws. And if you are looking for AI to guide you, you're probably sadly mistaken. You need a human being to decipher. Is that true? How many times are we told AI data could be true, could not be true? And while it's becoming more reliable, people matter. And so I want more HR professionals leaning into technology so that they can work smarter, not harder, And I want owners learning on their own, right, without us sort of
Yeah.
putting it down their throats, that there is value in human capital oversight.
Yeah, I like that phrase, human capital oversight, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really great definition of that HR function, especially for those small business. You know, a lot of that human capital oversight is on the founder's shoulders for so long.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yep.
probably have a hard time letting go of that as well. That there's
Mm-hmm.
probably some definite overlap or boundaries where they have a really hard time letting go of that. Do you see that happening very often?
I do. And it tends to revolve around who you're hiring. The smaller the team, the more impactful every
Mm,
hire is. Culture, right? All of that
yeah,
stuff. And small business owners can't afford to get wrong hires too often, right? One is too
yeah,
many. And so losing that ability, or what they think is that ability, to choose talent the way they used to when they were scruff and rough and, growing as a company, that doesn't change. What you do is you bring in an HR partner that can, one, ensure you're covering all your legal bases. But not
yeah.
only that, what if you could hire more efficiently? What if we brought in tools and resources that are not even on your radar that can help you assess talent better? That's what I like to bring to my clients. I am a tech junkie from an end user perspective, and I've always been that way. And my clients benefit because all the things that they're typically afraid of, I can ease them in through some platform that I can demonstrate, I can communicate. I try to meet the owner where they are.
Usually the reason the owner is kind of hiring that first HR person is they're trying to triage chaos, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
probably a lot of pain that
Mm-hmm.
created that need for that HR person. And unfortunately, the HR person is just going to step in and create more of a chaos, in the sense that it usually exposes more problems than not, that just kind of got swept under the rug. My question is like, how can leaders, HR leaders, either new at their role, been there at their role, kind of shift the cultural mindset to, we're not going to just triage chaos, but we're going to organize human capital. How do we start that transition?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it is becoming a strong solution oriented HR practitioner. It's not enough to identify the problem. You really should have a solution. And in
Mm,
fact, plan A and B is always nice, right? What I find with leaders is if you give them the really let's do it all the way version, somewhere in the middle, and what it looks like if we do nothing at all, that they can understand. But when you tell them there's only one way, and in fact, there may be more than one way, you are leaving a lot of opportunity on the table for you to be a thought leader and collaborate, tap into the leader's expertise, to have the right conversations. And
mm-hmm.
so I like being solution oriented. And the more an HR practitioner is clear about the solutions, how to execute, also, you already know what keeps your owner up at night. You're not a profit center. HR is not a profit center. So when you want to spend money, because time is money as well. So even if you say, I'm not buying anything, but you're going to spend your dedicated time, they have to pay you. So you need to be clear about ROI, length of project, give data to the owner, the leadership, so that they can make informed decisions. They don't know what
Mm,
they don't know. I always laugh because I am very clear that most people do not know what HR really does. I'm not saying that leaders are clueless entirely, obviously, right? But it would be like me saying, I fully understand what CEOs do. Absolutely. Right? I'm on the fringes. And so I think it's helpful if leaders coming with an open mind as well. I learned this in graduate school. I had a professor, he worked at OPM, and he said, listen, I don't care if you are W-2 or if you're 1099. If you choose HR as your career, you are an advisor. Your job is not to take things personal. Your job is to be a risk manager to be a risk management communication expert, solution oriented, and whatever leadership decides, now you cover yourself, you document, but you are a solution machine. What can you do and how can you execute to make their lives easier? And I used to be this way when I was young in my career. I'm all offended when leadership doesn't take my advice.
Yeah,
And, you know, it's really, in theory, it's not personal.
100%. Well, I'd like to share with HR pros out there what my love language is as a CEO, because I think it's also important to understand what we really want. And from my
Hmm.
standpoint, I want numbers. I want data to support a theory. And then I want those numbers to be interpreted with advice or a next step. What is the next right move with the
Hmm.
data you presented to me? That to me means more than any. Well, I feel like CEOs and other executives tend to cringe a little when we kind of get into that. But when I have an HR leader step up with numbers and data
Uh-huh.
and say, it's going to cost this much, it's going to take this much time, here's our next best step, it gives me so much more confidence in giving that green light to going forward. But also as a CEO, we want to be respectful of the HR leaders' opinions and insights, but it's so much easier to give full control and full throttle when it's
Hmm.
supported with data.
I could not agree more. And that is a piece that a lot of organizations, especially those who aren't Fortune 100, 500, and can't put in thousands into these metric data computing machines, right? Or
Yeah, right.
integrating their systems. And so
Yeah.
you can do that at every level. It may not be as sophisticated as, I don't know, Pepsi, but you can quantify the problem, you can quantify the solution, and as you said, map the path forward. But I agree. And I got to be honest, I don't get in my feelings about gender nuances, but here's my experience. Most of my clients are men. And what I mean they're men, most of my clients that sign the contract, that are leading those organizations tend to be men. And what I found in my success is doing exactly what you just said. Succinct, right? Laser
Mm-hmm.
focus. Like,
Mm-hmm.
while telling them the color on the walls is lovely, that is not material. And
Right.
then also, right, speaking to what I know is important. What's this going to cost? Is it going to cost money, time,
Mm-hmm.
both? Why? Can we do it differently? Can we spread it out? Does it all have to be done today? Now? How urgent, right? So, I mean, you're a CEO, so you're spot on, but that is what I've been telling people. Like, so maybe we just need to hear from more CEOs. But maybe that's it.
I think feedback, it's hard either way to get, right? Sometimes it's,
Hmm.
as a CEO, you almost don't want to be too blunt to muddy any relationships, but also
Hmm.
it's critical to be bidirectional. I think communication plays a tremendous role in making sure that performance it is at its peak. Maybe you got some ideas as well, Sanaa, on if you're an HR practitioner out there and you're wanting to say, I need to level up my relationship with my CEO, where do you go? What are some tools, some resources, some groups? You've got a phenomenal group, but what do you recommend? Where do they go? What's the next right move?
Well, when all else fails, go outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Ask others. Talk to leaders who are HR leaders that are levels above you. Get into peer groups like HR Girlfriends. And we're not the only one. There's lots of opportunities in
Yeah.
person, virtual, but also mentorship is critical. And for instance, there's an amazing partner HR Girlfriends has, Upnotch. They are revolutionizing mentorship. HR Girlfriends has a community there where we are matching mentors and mentees. There's no cost. I just want to be sure that anybody who wants to go down, let's say you want to change tracks in HR. That's the beautiful thing about our industry. You can specialize, you can be a generalist.
Mm-hmm.
You need guidance, and nobody starts off knowing how to be a communication expert. It is experience, It is a lot of failures and somewhere in between. So go outside of yourself. Or how about ask your CEO? So sometimes it's the most simplest thing,
Sure. Yeah.
it's like, Ryan, I really want to create a different tone in our direction forward. What would be important for me to bring to the table to you so that we can make decisions faster, we can be more agile? It's okay to ask your leader. It's weird. Human nature, right? We want to perfect the person outside of them. So we come to the person and it's like, I did it. It's wonderful. I
Yeah.
spoke. He heard me. It's not magic. Talk to your
Oh,
leaders.
that's so powerful. That question, I just want to like repeat back what you just said because I think it's so critical. What can I do to help take more pressure off of your shoulders? What can I do to provide more value back for you to make this organization run more smoothly? Asking those questions shows an intent of being a team player and a buy-in. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's when true trust is built, is when there's alignment on we're both directionally going in the same way. We both want the same things. We're in it together on the same team, and that's got to be a really important relationship between executive leadership and the human capital function. Is there's got to be very clean alignment on goals and what's important in the company.
In HR, we talk about reporting structure.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we judge an organization based on who the HR leader reports to. When the HR leader reports to the CEO, we're winning. Oh, we're winning. But when HR reports to the CFO, the CAO, someone other than the CEO, there tends to be sometimes be a disconnect because HR is a truly powerful function. And if the leader of HR can't have direct, consistent leadership and connection with the CEO, the number of missed opportunities, because HR is already complex in many ways. And now I've got a middleman that's going to reproduce a communication piece that I just gave them. And now they're telling you, you're losing the nuances, you're losing the data and the details. I just wanted to put that out there that organizations and owners and leaders really be mindful about who HR reports to, even if it's straight line and a dotted line. The closer we are to the CEO in terms of productive conversations and actionable items, that's where you get real value out of HR.
What is the CEO giving you that a CFO isn't?
Well, the CFO is a money person, and the CFOs tends, not always, they tend to be money conscious. And so when you're bringing ideas to the table and you're talking to a money person, they're skewed a tad. They have a function. Their function is to make sure finances are in line, there's revenue growth, etc. And they don't hold the organization's vision, right? And they don't understand the complexities of the path forward the way the CEO does, perhaps from the financial perspective. But HR, outside of money, our goals need to be tied to the business goals, right? Who we hire, who we train, how we train, the paths we go through, simple things like policy development, right? I'm not saying that reporting to the CFO is a problem as long as there is some interaction, productive processes that the HR leader can connect with the CEO for input, collaboration, and really sort of goal sharing.
And can I add to that? I don't want to take
Yeah.
anything away with what you just said, but I want to add to it. And I'm going to use a very public example with it. I believe you're spot on. I think HR needs to be tied to the hip with the CEO. The CEO's role is to dictate the vision, mission, direction of the organization, and we need to have
Mm-hmm.
a pure alignment there. And I agree with that. The only thing I would say is is to add in the conversation with the CFO to protect ourselves from over hiring that would create catastrophic layoffs. Great example might be the vision of Mark Zuckerberg to create the metaverse and all the hiring and the spending of $1 billion a year on metaverse infrastructure and the people. But had we gotten involved with the CFO that was like, bad idea of spending too much money because we're burning through our coffers way too fast here. Maybe we should put the brakes on it. And that's an extreme example. But I think the money side helps create that checks and balance to this weird thing that me and other CEOs have. Our visions are bigger than reality. I know that's shocking to a lot of people.
Oh,
but
yes.
maybe we're like, our vision is almost too ambitious and wanting, but a CFO helps create a little bit of a checks and balance to make sure we're not overextending ourselves to create then a human, like we should be avoiding any sort of layoff as aggressively as we can. And sometimes the CFO is going to give us the balance we need.
Oh, really? If they're doing their gig, they are going to be the gateway to forecasting and to ensuring that, our projections are on point. Can we afford it? How do we do this? I've had conversations with CFOs where we want to move forward with a $50,000 technology platform because it's going to be effective and it'll have ROI. But I needed to negotiate with the service provider to split our payments in such a way that it aligned with our cash flow. I couldn't have done that without the CFO's help. But for my seat, I need to understand the goals, the vision, the mission. I will go get you as many options as you want. And we can figure out how to afford the best option, or we put the best option we can afford at the time. And so the CFO always has a place. I just think it's okay for your CEO to dream big, because if you don't think HR is going to bring you down a little bit, we'll bear it down for you, So, we don't want to put a damper on your dreams, but, we want to make sure we're compliant and that we have a culture that keeps people and attracts people.
I love that. Sanaa, I'm going to end it there because that was so poignant and well said. And just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to join us. For those of you listening or watching, go follow Sanaa on LinkedIn. Sanaa Walker, HR Girlfriends, has got an enormous amount of content. Their social channels, they've got their own page, and a lot of great contents that's shared there. I know folks on my team have commented, and that's ultimately what led us to reach out to Sanaa to make sure we got this conversation going. So thank you so much. Is there anything
You're
else
welcome.
that we can add, or any other ways we can connect with you to stay in touch?
Yeah, well, if you would like to stay in touch, you can always find me on LinkedIn, as you said. Our website is hrgirlfriends.com, and I'm not afraid of email. You can catch me at sanaa@hrgirlfriends.com. And if I can be a resource, I'm always open.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
Have a
you so
blessed
much,
day.
Ryan. You too.